Friday afternoon arrives with a sense of quiet familiarity. The clock reaches the end of the workday, office doors open, and streams of people spill onto the streets. Faces look relieved, but the relief is thin, fragile, almost ceremonial. The work week is over, yet the exhaustion remains. Bodies leave the office, but minds often do not. Thoughts linger on unanswered emails, unfinished tasks, and deadlines that pass too quickly. Plans for the coming week already begin to form, occupying mental space that should belong to rest. Work may have ended on paper, but it continues internally. When people finally arrive home, the weight of fatigue becomes unmistakable. Simple activities, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, suddenly feel overwhelming. These tasks are not difficult by nature. They simply require energy. And for many, that energy has already been spent. In this state, convenience turns into necessity. Opening a food delivery app, choosing a familiar meal, and waiting for the doorbell requires minimal effort. The final bill is often higher than expected, filled with extra fees and charges. Yet few people pause to reconsider. A familiar justification appears. I worked hard all week. I deserve this. After dinner, another routine follows. A drink to unwind. A screen lights up. A show plays quietly, easy, predictable, and mentally undemanding. It is not chosen for meaning or quality, but because it asks for nothing. Individually, these choices seem harmless. Together, they reveal something else. They are not acts of enjoyment, but acts of recovery. They exist not because life is rich, but because something has been depleted. From an early age, most people are taught a simple idea. The value of work is measured by salary. A higher income is assumed to mean a better life, greater stability, and higher personal worth. Over time, annual income becomes a shorthand for success, competence, and even self-respect. The problem is not that income matters, but that it is often viewed without context. In business, no serious assessment relies on revenue alone. A company can generate impressive sales while remaining fundamentally weak if its operating costs consume nearly everything it earns. In such cases, revenue becomes a misleading figure useful for appearances but disconnected from real value. Yet when people evaluate their own labor, this logic is frequently abandoned. Attention is placed on gross salary or sometimes net income after taxes, and that number is treated as the true reward of the job. Rarely is a more important question asked: what did it cost me to earn this income? When costs are ignored, financial, physical, and psychological, income appears larger and more meaningful than it truly is. This misunderstanding quietly shapes decisions, lifestyles, and expectations, often leading people to overestimate what their work is actually giving them. There are many expenses that exist almost entirely because of full-time employment. If the job were removed, these costs would either disappear or shrink dramatically. The most obvious example is commuting. Fuel, public transportation tickets, parking fees, vehicle maintenance, insurance, and depreciation quietly accumulate over time. In many cases, the primary reason a person owns a car is simply to travel to and from work each day. Without the job, the expense itself would be unnecessary or significantly reduced. Another category involves workplace appearance. Clothing that looks professional, appropriate shoes, bags, grooming, and ongoing cleaning or dry cleaning costs rarely bring real satisfaction. They exist to meet expectations, signal competence, and avoid standing out in ways that could threaten employability. Then there are expenses created by lack of time. When schedules are rigid and days are full, basic tasks such as cooking, cleaning, or handling personal responsibilities become difficult. As a result, people rely more on takeout food, convenience purchases, and paid services to replace time they no longer have. These costs are often mistaken for personal choices or poor financial discipline. In reality, they are structural consequences of a work arrangement that trades time and energy for income, leaving little room for anything else. Beyond visible, practical expenses, there exists another category that is less clearly defined but just as significant: spending, meant to compensate for mental and emotional strain. After difficult work days, many people turn to comfort in predictable ways: eating for relief rather than hunger, buying things impulsively to offset frustration, or planning short trips simply to escape routine pressure. Others invest in courses, therapy, or wellness services in an attempt to restore balance and emotional stability. These expenses are often described as rewards or self care. While they can be helpful, their necessity points to an underlying issue. They exist because work creates stress that must be managed or repaired. A portion of income is therefore not used to improve long term quality of life, but to undo damage caused by the job itself. Over time, this forms a closed cycle. Work produces strain. Strain leads to spending. Spending reduces financial flexibility, and reduced flexibility increases dependence on work. Because this cycle is common, it becomes normalized. The cost of stress is absorbed quietly, rarely recognized as part of the true price of earning income. On paper, a standard work week is often defined as 40 hours. This number appears clear, reasonable, and manageable. In practice, however, it rarely reflects how much time work truly occupies. Time spent preparing in the morning, commuting to and from the workplace, and adhering to fixed schedules is inseparable from the job itself. Lunch breaks are often constrained, fragmented, or interrupted. Meetings extend beyond their planned duration. Messages and emails continue to arrive outside official working hours. Even after leaving the workplace, many people remain mentally engaged with their jobs. Stress lingers. Problems replay themselves. The mind stays alert, making genuine rest difficult. Although this time is unpaid, it is still controlled by work. When these hidden hours are added together, the true weekly time commitment often reaches 55 or even 60 hours. This reality fundamentally alters how income should be evaluated, yet it is rarely acknowledged. Work does not only occupy scheduled hours, it quietly claims surrounding time, reshaping days, routines, and personal life in ways that are easy to overlook but impossible to ignore. Once the full time cost of work is acknowledged, the next step becomes unavoidable: recalculating income in a more honest way. This calculation begins with net income after taxes. From that number, all work-related expenses must be subtracted: transportation, meals, clothing, services, and spending required to maintain the ability to keep working. What remains is the portion of income that is truly retained. That remaining amount is then divided by the total number of hours work actually claims, including unpaid time spent commuting, preparing, and mentally recovering. When this is done, the resulting hourly income is often far lower than expected. For many people, this realization is unsettling. A salary that once seemed comfortable begins to feel fragile. This helps explain why individuals earning decent or even above average incomes still struggle to save, invest, or escape financial pressure. This recalculation is not meant to dismiss the value of work. It is meant to restore accuracy. Only by understanding how much time and energy are exchanged for money can income be evaluated honestly. Career advancement is often presented as a clear path forward. Promotions promise higher income, greater authority, and a stronger sense of professional identity. On the surface, they appear to solve many problems at once. Yet promotions rarely come alone. Higher pay is usually paired with greater responsibility, longer working hours, and increased expectations of availability. The job expands, quietly claiming more time and mental space than before. At the same time, expenses tend to rise. a new role often brings a higher standard of living, larger financial commitments, and social expectations that are difficult to step away from. Over time, these commitments reduce flexibility. In some cases, income increases while personal freedom decreases. Leaving the position becomes emotionally risky and financially intimidating. This is how golden handcuffs form: compensation high enough to discourage departure, but not high enough to restore control over time and energy. What looks like progress can slowly turn into a form of dependence. The impact of work-related costs does not stop at the present moment. Small, repeated expenses accumulate quietly over time, shaping long-term outcomes in ways that are easy to underestimate. Money spent daily on convenience, recovery, and maintenance reduces the ability to save and invest. What appears minor in isolation becomes significant when repeated over years. Financial flexibility slowly erodes, making future choices more limited and more constrained. Beyond money, opportunity costs appear in the form of lost time and energy. Hours consumed by work and recovery are hours not spent learning new skills, exploring interests, or building alternative paths. Energy drained by constant pressure is energy unavailable for personal growth or creative effort. These costs are rarely visible in the moment. They do not feel dramatic. Yet over time, they quietly determine what options remain possible and which ones fade away. Opportunity cost is not just about what is spent, but about what is never allowed to develop. When income alone is no longer treated as the primary measure of success, a different perspective begins to emerge. Instead of asking how to earn more, a more meaningful question appears: how much can actually be kept? From this viewpoint, success is measured not by total income, but by retained resources, money, time, and energy. A job that pays less but consumes far fewer hours may produce a higher real hourly income and leave more room for life outside of work. Reducing expenses that exist solely because of work can have a powerful effect. Shortening commutes, lowering lifestyle expectations tied to professional identity, or limiting unnecessary recovery spending can improve overall efficiency without increasing salary. Likewise, reducing the amount of time work occupies, whether through flexibility, boundaries, or different arrangements, can restore balance. Even modest changes can significantly increase the portion of life that remains under personal control. Success, viewed this way, becomes less about status and more about sustainability. Re-examining both expenses and time allows people to see their work more clearly. What once felt normal begins to appear differently when its full cost is acknowledged. A life audit does not require dramatic change. It begins with awareness, understanding how much time work truly occupies, how much money is spent because of it, and how much energy remains at the end of each week. When these elements are made visible, decisions become less emotional and more grounded in reality. Or when time is treated as the central unit of value, priorities shift. Career choices, financial commitments, and daily habits are evaluated not only by income, but by what they preserve or consume. Work becomes one part of life, not the force that defines all others. The ultimate goal is not to work endlessly or to earn more at any cost. It is to retain enough resources, money, time, and energy to live a life that is balanced, sustainable, and meaningful. When these resources are protected, income becomes a tool rather than a trap.